Boards and booze, booze and boards, drinks and beers, fight some hordes. Drank too much, forgot our swords, ran back home, filled our gourds, got drunk again, sang some chords. Boards and booze and boards, with Mickey and Jeb.
Say, Mickey, what would you like to play today?
I don't know what that was. It's a bit odd.
I said, say, Mickey.
Oh, I was going to start tweeting like a bird.
Oh. I was doing wordplay.
Tweet.
I guess we were not on the same page
No,
there.
we weren't. We're not. That's because Jeb's mind doesn't function well. Anyways, it's this game, and I'm not even going to try to say it because I'll mess it up.
It's Seikatsu, which is why I was like, say, Mickey.
Yeah,
I
get it now because Jeb is Mr. Japanese guy. So anything in Seikatsu, did I do that right? Pretty close.
Pretty close.
Like, they would know what I was talking about if I was in Japan?
Yeah.
Okay.
They'd be like,
what's the matter with this guy? Yeah. All right. So anyways, that's the name of the game. It's a IDW game. Yep. And we have
1 to 4 players.
1 to 4. Oh.
Yeah. 30 minutes and ages 10 and up.
Right. I will say that I do know that if you play with 4, you're playing in teams.
Yep. And if you play 1, you're playing against the game.
Well, that's usually how you have to play when you play 1 against 1, Jeb. Really? Did you just say that?
Yeah, I did. It was supposed to be...
How many Japanese drinks have you had tonight?
Not many.
Oh, work was that bad, huh? Yeah. Okay. All right. So, anyways, IDW was kind enough to send us a few games, and this is the first one out of the games that they sent us to review that we're going to do.
We actually saw this at, what was the last one that we went to? The convention?
We went to PAX Unplugged.
PAX Unplugged. They had this there.
We did not get to play it, though.
Right.
So it's a 30-minute game, at least on the box, and it's basically it's got birds and flowers, and and you're trying to build the best garden that you can.
Yeah,
right?
It kind of had that Tokaido feel where like that one's you're trying to have the best vacation. This is like, oh, you're trying to make the prettiest garden. So that's what when I first read the description, that's what I thought of. So
okay,
and it's actually pretty easy to play. So
yeah, after reading the rules, it seems like it should be. This actually will be. You're gonna see. Like, no testing, no whatever, we're just jumping into the game. Jeb and I haven't played before. So, you're going to see what it would be like is if you pulled out the rule book, read through it once or twice, and then sat down and tried to play it. So, that's, sometimes that's actually an advantage in my opinion, then you can learn from some of the things we either do or don't do correctly.
Right.
So, other than that, we're not going to waste a whole lot of time here. We're going to jump right into components, which will be really quick. And then we'll go into gameplay, and then we'll sit down, have a full game, and then after that, we'll be back with our review just like we normally do. So, back with components in just a second.
Yep. All right, everything that you see right now is the components for Seikatsu. It's pretty simple, not too much going on. You've got the garden board, and there are 3 different colors.
You got a blue quadrant. You got a pink quadrant and a green quadrant, and I'm saying quadrant when there's not 4. What do you call a 3-division quadrant?
A trident.
Okay. Anyways, you guys know what I'm talking about.
The score track is around the outer part of the game board.
Right here, you got some numbers.
And then in the center, there's the garden itself, where all the circles are where you can place the tiles.
Right. Just so this area is so real quick. Wherever you're sitting, you notice there's 3 different spots. Basically your garden is coming out from whatever color you're sitting in front of. Yeah. What is it called again?
Those are pagodas.
Pagodas. That's what those are called.
Okay. Then the next component is the garden tiles, which are all of the ones with the birds and the flowers.
Right. So these are what some of the various tiles look like. They're super nice. They're plastic. They're not cardboard, and the artwork is really pretty.
There are 4 different types of birds and 4 different colors of flowers.
So just for instance, like let's see. So here's the same bird, but you'll notice that the flowers are different. So this guy has blue flowers, and this guy has purple flowers. So that's basically.
Yeah, there's all the combinations.
All the combinations in the game.
And there's actually names for all the birds and the flowers, but I'm never going to remember them.
Yeah, so we're just going to give you, when we talk about it, a color of a flower and a color of a bird.
Yep. Then there are the koi pond tiles. And there's 4 of those. Then there are 3 scoring ponds.
So these are for the track out around the outside of the board. Just in case you're wondering, there's the 0 mark, and as you score, you'll just move the marker around the board.
And the color of the marker matches the colors around the board.
Of your
pagodas.
Pagoda.
And then the last thing is the cloth bag.
Yeah.
Which
Jeb's gonna say everything right this game, like he normally doesn't, and I'm just gonna I'm gonna call these things pavilions or huts or gazebos, anything but a pagoda.
Yep.
And then you just said the bag,
yep,
right? And then the bag, so that you can randomize the tiles, because you're gonna pick tiles randomly.
And that's everything for components. So as you can see, there's not much.
There's not much in it, so I guess we can just jump right into setup.
Yep. Alright, so for the first thing for setup, you're going to put the board on the table in between all the players, and then each of the players sits behind whichever color they want to be. So, Mickey, you're sitting behind green, right?
Yes. I'm at green right now, and if there's somebody sitting at blue, and I think it actually recommends which 2 colors you use. I don't know if it makes too much of a difference.
I think it's blue and pink for 2 players.
Right, so I don't know if that's strategic, but I would probably recommend that
you do
that, because based on the layout it might be different. Although if you count the spaces, it is exactly the same number of lines between it. So you have 7 here, and you have 7 here, and you have 7 here. And if you're watching my fingers, that'll make sense when we go over how you score the game. But it's important that you're facing 7 starting circles.
Yep. Alright, the next thing is you're going to put the scoring pawns on the 0 marker of the score track.
Okay, so that's over here, depending on how many players, since it's just going to be Jeb and I, and we're going to do the blue and pink like they recommend. We'll just put the blue and pink there and set that to the side.
Alright, next up you're going to put all the garden tiles into the bag. So that's everything with a bird on it. The koi ponds will stay out for now. And you are going to mix it really well.
Make sure we got the colors right on.
It is.
It is blue.
Yeah.
Oh, you wrote it down.
Yep.
Mixing really well. Okay, mixed really well.
Alright, so for a 2-player game, you're going to draw 2 tiles and place them on the spaces adjacent to the koi pond in the center of the board. So if you can see, there are 3 spaces that have little flowers on them. That's what they're talking about. So in a 2-player game, you would draw 2 tiles right now and place them on. And then if it was a 3-player game, you would draw 3. So since we're doing a 2-player, it's just going to be 2 of the 3. Then next up, you're going to add the koi pond tiles to the bag and mix them in.
I think also in the starters, when it's 2-player, it's those 2 spots, not...
That would make sense, because
right?
they're...
No, I think there's a picture of it in the rule book.
Yes, in the picture it has it as those 2.
Yeah. And just so you guys know, in a 2-player game, I know Jeb said adjacent, but in the two-player game, you don't do that. Since it's blue and pink, you put it... That's exactly how you put it.
Alright, so Mickey mixed in the koi pond tiles, and what's going to happen now is each player is going to draw 2 tiles and keep them secret from the other players.
Right. And then since you're blind pulling them, you're probably going to want to cup them in your hand until you get them in front of you, and kind of like then make them so that you can see them. And then at that point, you can just put them down on the table or whatever. So this, basically, it's like your hand, a hand of cards or whatever, except you're using chips.
And then after that, you determine who's first player. So you can do that however you want. And that's everything for setup. So we are actually ready to play. So let's tell them how...
Talk about gameplay then.
Yep. So an overview of gameplay is that it plays in turns until the board is filled. For that to make more sense, on your turn, you do 3 things. The first thing is play a tile. So in your hand, you have 2 tiles. You're going to pick one of those and play them.
And you can play them on any empty space adjacent to another tile.
Yes.
Has to be adjacent.
Has to be adjacent
and it has to be empty.
And they mentioned in the rulebook that the koi pond in the very center of the board is not a space.
Exactly.
So that's the first thing you do, is play a tile. Next, you're going to score points based on the matching birds. So, say Mickey plays... Or do you want to go first, or I got a blue one?
But since you're talking about scoring now, I think it's kind of a this is probably a good point to basically tell you what you're trying to do in this game.
Yeah.
So, as I mentioned when we went over the intro, you're trying to build the best garden, and so if I'm blue sitting here, my garden stems from Yeah, I'm not... It's hard to do it if I don't move.
It's like this.
Yeah, so it's like this. I'm looking out.
So he's looking out into the 7 rows of flowers that will be built.
So I'm actually sitting in front of it now so that I can not be special for you guys. And the way you do that, as Jeb said, when you're placing tiles, is you're either trying to match birds or match flowers. The thing is, though, flowers aren't going to get scored till the end. Birds are going to get scored instantly. So let's say it's Jeb's turn, and Jeb actually has a bird that matches this. Okay, so the key to the bird matching is that if you have a bird that matches another bird, you form a flock.
And that's adjacent.
And that's adjacent if you're touching it. And if you make the flock, then you get 1 for the bird that you played, and 1 for each additional bird of the same type so if there was blue all the way around, Jeb would have a massive turn. But in this case, so since he did form a flock, he gets 1 for that bird, and then 1 for this bird. Okay,
so that would put me up to 2.
So, but what happens if he plays one that doesn't match? Okay, so remember what I said. You only score if you play a matching bird adjacent to another bird of the same type. So, in this case, he didn't. So he doesn't even get a point for the one he played, and he gets no bonuses because they don't match. So, basically, no matches, you don't get any points.
Yep.
In a nutshell.
There is one other thing that you can play, and that's the koi pond. So if I instead played the koi pond there, what happens is koi ponds count as a bird of your choice when you play them. After you play it, it doesn't count as any kind of bird. So when I play that, I would say, I want it to count as a blue bird. So then I would get...
He would score it exactly the same. This would be a temporary blue bird, 1 point. This would be the second blue bird. That's the second point. But the key to the koi, even though it is a wild, is that if during my turn I play something over here, it's not a blue bird anymore, and it's not wild anymore. It's just a koi pond at that point. Right. So if I played something here, it would be nothing.
Right.
I mean, the pond would be nothing. My tile would be something.
And then after you play your tile, the last thing you do on your turn is draw a new tile. So you just grab a tile out of the bag and it goes into your hand. So Mickey doesn't know what I have in my hand. So that's pretty much everything on your turn that you do. A couple things to note is when you draw the tile on your turn at the end of your turn, you're going to pass the bag to the next player. So it makes sense. The next person's going to have the bag ready to draw from. They mention in the rules that the last 2 turns for each player, they will actually not draw any tiles because there won't be any in the bag.
Right. But you are going to play all the tiles.
Play them, yeah. So the game actually ends when all of the tiles have been placed on the board. Speaking of the game ending, we got to talk about how to score the flowers, because once the board's filled, you're going to score the points based on the flowers.
Okay, and so real quick, we're going to, and this is going to cut off and come magically back, and it's going to be, the board's going to be just randomly filled with stuff like we had played a game. So
Ta-da!
Ta-da! Okay, so now we're back, and what we're going to, now you'll understand what the point of the flowers are, because the flowers come into scoring at the end of the game. So again, I'm sitting behind the blue pagoda?
You got it right.
I got it right, okay. So, at this point, what I do is I look out from my my garden, where it starts from blue, so these are the 2 corners, and I'll just start with this one. And I look down the row, and I look for matching flowers.
Yep.
And in this row, there's 2 blue. This is a blue flower. This is a blue flower. Remember, we're not paying attention to the birds anymore. And then there's a chart that you go by in the rule book that says how much a 2 combination is worth, which is worth how many, Jeb?
A 2 combination is worth 3 points.
Right.
However, you have a koi pond in your aisle. And koi ponds are wild when counting the flower points, and they count towards your highest group. So since Mickey's highest group is 2 blues, it just adds 1 to that. So he has 3 blues.
Which is the scoring for 3
is 6 points.
So
you would move
this row, I would move my counter up 6 points for that.
Yep.
Then I would move to this next row, and in this next row, I have no koi pond this time, but I do have a pair of blue and a pair of looks
Purplish,
like purple
pink,
lavender, whatever you want to call it, fluffy looking things. Jeb said 2s are worth how much?
2s are worth 3 points.
So
in this case, since he has 2 sets of 2, there's no split or anything. You just 2 is your highest group, so you're getting points for a 2 set. So
do I get 2 sets? It's just the highest group period in a row.
And if it's a tie, then it's just a 2 set. So
okay, so I have 2 sets here. 2 is a tie, so I take the highest set, and so that would give me 3 more points, and then I'd move my marker 3.
Yep.
So then you continue down the row. See if there's anything unique in any of these rows here. This is an interesting one. I have two kois in a row. You don't count the...
that one actually has 2 pinks and 2 yellows and 2 kois. So that just makes it a 4 set.
So there's a set of these, like Jeb said. There's a set of these, and then I have 2 of those. So it's a set of 4. However much a 4 set is worth, you would get that.
10 points.
10 points. So I would do the rest of the rows, looking for the highest set that I could find. I would score it. And then Jeb would do the same thing, except his rows are going from this side, like this. And as you can see, those are going to be totally different matches than what I had.
And the book recommends doing this 1 player at a time, starting with the player who's in last place, which makes sense. I mean, if you try to do all this at the same time, it's just going to be a big mess.
And plus, somebody else might see something that you don't, too.
Right.
Just looking at the rows or whatever.
Yep. So once that's done, the winner is the person who has the most points. And if there is a tie, it's broken by the player who was last in turn order. So that's how you determine the winner. The only other thing I have left to talk about is the different variants of the game, which I'm not going to go into details, but a 4-player game, you split into 2 teams of 2. In a solo game, you compete against the combined score of the 2 other pagodas. And there's a tournament mode, which in your starting 2 tiles, everybody gets 1 koi pond.
Right.
So if you want to look up more about those, you can check the rule book, or you can ask us questions and we'll answer them, but we're not going to go into specifics on that stuff right now.
Yeah, because the mechanics are basically the same. It's
Yeah.
just how you set up, and then the tournament play is just so somebody doesn't get screwed out of getting wild cards.
Yeah.
So it makes it more fair. We'll reshuffle all the chips and set up a game, and Jeb and I will play a game.